thanks for joining us today. My name is Kim Murdoch and you're watching Art Tub Online. So today's craft is really fun. It is based on the Alice in Wonderland character Queen of Hearts, her soldiers, and they are made with playing cards. They're really cute, they're fun to make. This craft was from our Alice in Wonderland camp that we did a few years ago. You can see some of the examples of what the little soldiers can look like. And it's fun because you make them with a deck of cards. You can get a deck of cards at the dollar store if you don't have an old one laying around, but there's a lot of cards in the deck, so you can make a lot of these soldiers. It's really fun. So when we come back, I'm going to tell you what supplies you need, and we'll be right back. Okay, so the supplies we need for today's craft are, as I mentioned, some playing cards. These are from the dollar store, and I still have a bunch left over. They're really fun. You can just make these whatever color you have, or just fine. So you also need a few other things. So I have pipe cleaners here, and if you have pipe cleaners at home, you can use whatever color you like. These I cut in half. I just folded them and cut them in half. I have black, white, and red here, but you could use whatever colors you have. If you don't have pipe cleaners, you could use instead some of these bread twist ties. You can get these just from literally a bag of bread or something else like that from the grocery store. These are white, so they could easily be colored black or red if you wanted to do that. You also are going to need some paper. So I have a few sheets of paper here. This is not cardstock paper, but it's a little thicker than regular copy paper. If that's all you have, that's fine, but if you have construction paper that's white, that will work really well. You're gonna need some scissors and a glue stick, some clear tape, and a Sharpie. If you don't have a Sharpie, of course, you can always just use markers. And what else do we need? Oh, if you have Googly Eyes, they're a really fun thing to add to this project. If you don't, that's fine. Like I said, you can always just make the Googly Eyes. Make the eyes. And some markers. Now I do have a mat here today. That's something that I've mentioned before in these videos. You know, the table covering protects the table, but sometimes you want to protect the table covering, so sometimes it's nice to work on a mat. So that's what I'm going to do today. All right, guys, so those are all the supplies we need. When we come back, we will get started. So to get started, we need to take a playing card and a piece of paper. So this is just a half sheet of paper. If you have a full sheet, it doesn't matter. We're going to be cutting these down into smaller and smaller pieces. And that's because we needed something that's going to fit the top of this card. If you look at this example, this one has the paper going across the top, and this was red construction paper. If you have red construction paper, you can use that instead. If you have markers and only white paper, that works just fine. So I'm going to do that today. So this piece was already cut down. If you notice, it's a little bit bigger than my card, and that's a good size sheet. So if you want to know how big that is, it's about a quarter of this bigger sheet, okay? So we'll be talking more about how to get that size later. What I'd like you to do now is just trim this a little bit, make sure the edges are nice and neat. And the very first thing we're going to do is make the shoulders of our guy. So one thing I've done before by accident is do these backwards and have the back of the card be the front. But what we want to do is have their symbol showing. So there are 4 different types of cards. There's spades, hearts, diamonds, and clubs. This one is a spade. So it doesn't really matter which way is up, but what I want you to do is just make sure that this is the front. So we're going to take this little piece of paper and we're going to fold it in half. Now this is a hot dog fold. If you guys are familiar with that, supposedly you can put a hot dog in there. And I'm going to hold this up so you can see. You see how that goes across the top like the shoulders? It's a little bigger than it needs to be, and that's okay because we're going to be cutting it to fit. So each one of these is cut to sort of be similar to the symbol on the card. So this is a heart, and so you can see how these are curving a little bit. This one was a spade, and you can see how these are more come down to points. So you can do that however you want to, but it's just kind of fun to make them look a little different. So I'm going to cut the ends right now, and the first 2 cuts I did made them like that. They're not exactly the same, so I might do a little more cutting just to try to make them more similar. That's cool just the way it is, but I want to just do a little bit more. So I'm going to cut another shape like that. So as I mentioned, I'm not using black construction paper or red construction paper, so I'm going to be using a marker. Now if you have a Sharpie, I wouldn't use the Sharpie to color this in black. It'll kind of waste your Sharpie. If that's all you have, of course, go for it. But definitely use a marker if you have one. It has more ink and it's designed to work that way. So I'm going to open up my black marker and I'm going to start coloring. That's why I have my mat out today, because it is okay to go off the edge, and if you make accidental marks on your mat, that's okay. So you see how quickly I color that in? I'm going to do the same thing on the back. And I'm doing the best I can to fill it in and make it nice and black. So basically, I'm not scribbling. I hope you're not either. So this is, it's on my fingers, but that's okay. This is going to become the shoulders of my guy. And what I'm going to do next is use my tape. So I'm using clear tape today. The reason we're taping this on instead of gluing it is these cards are waxy. They have like sort of a slippery surface, and gluing things to them doesn't work that great, but the tape sticks really well. So I'm going to take a little piece of my clear tape. I'm going to put this on my card, and I'm going to have to set it down to do this just because it's easier. But I want to do it so that you see how you can see all three of these. You don't have to do it that way, but I think it looks extra cool. I'm going to take a little piece of tape. I'm going to put it also on the back. So now he's looking pretty awesome, right? So the top of your guy is the head of your soldier is supposed to be the shape of this symbol right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a smaller piece of paper, and I'm just going to do the very best I can. I'm going to look at it. I'm just going to look right at this shape, and I'm just going to do the best I can. Doesn't have to be exactly the same. It's just kind of the same. All right. So I drew that in Sharpie so that I could show you very clearly, but you can always do it in pencil if that's easier. And you can see how it's kind of a similar shape. So I'm going to go ahead and take my scissors and I'm going to cut this out. So when you're cutting, it's okay if you don't cut exactly on your lines. If you want to make it a slightly different shape as you're going, that's fine too. So what I have here now is what's going to become the head of this soldier, but I need to make it that black color. So I'm going to take my marker and I'm just going to fill this in without scribbling. Fill it in nice and completely. And it's not colored in on the back, and I want to make sure that I do that. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. So if the ink is wet when you are coloring and it's getting on your fingers, like it is me, it's not a big deal, it'll wash off. But if it bothers you, you can just kind of blow on it, or you can just let it dry a little bit before you pick it up. It's not going to hurt you. All right, so I've got this ready. It's going to go on right here. And I'm going to use a little piece of tape for that. So when I say little, I just mean it's not a huge piece of tape. And I'm going to put it right there where it belongs. And I'm going to put that tape on there. So it's not taped on the back, it's just taped on the front right now. And if you don't want his head to be folding over or flopping over on you, you need to put tape on both sides. So it's looking pretty cool. I really enjoy this craft. So we also need to add a white circle, as you can see from my example here, onto this on his head so that we can see his facial expression. So before we do the eyes or anything else, we need to add that white circle. So you don't need a huge piece of paper for this. If you have a scrap that might fit, that's great. If you don't, it's a good time to work on cutting some of these pieces down to size. So it's really a good idea to cut them into quarters. That way you can use them for different things. This is still like way too big, so I'm going to cut it down again. And I'm going to cut it one more time. So I really have like a smaller square now. And if you need to trace something on here to get a circle, I think like a soda bottle cap would be a perfect size circle. Or you can just kind of wing it like I'm doing right now. It doesn't have to be exactly round. So it's a pretty good looking circle. It's kind of big, so I'm going to trim it just a little bit. And the good news is if you trim it too much and you think, oh no, this is too small, well, you got lots of paper, just make another one. All right, so that's about right. I don't want it to be too close to the edge, but I want it to basically fit right there. So this now is time for your glue stick. And that's because this is paper on paper and the surface is not slippery, so it will stick with no problem. Okay, so I have attached my guy's face to his head. It's always a good thing. Now it's time for the googly eyes. So I'm not going to use googly eyes today because not everyone has them. If you have them, just glue them on. Use your glue stick and glue them on. Then I want you to think about the mouth and the eyebrows. But if you're working with me to make eyes today, what you want to do is just use a scrap of paper. I'm going to use a really little scrap of paper, but this is good for the eyes. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold it in half. And then I'm only going to cut one time. I'm just going to cut a circle out of this small folded piece of paper. And it's okay, you can always cut more if you need to, but just go ahead and cut them out. And then you're gonna have two round eyes. So take your Sharpie or a marker, any color will do. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna draw some designs on here to give our guy some eyes. Now, like I said, it can be any color, whatever you want is fine. There we go. These soldiers are kind of funny. You can make them look surprised or a little bit, you know, kind of angry or a little bit ruffled. It's just kind of fun to make it up. Or they can, of course, be really happy too. So I'm going to take the eyes that I made and I'm going to glue them on. So I'm putting his eyes on, and this is a glue that is purple right now, but it dries clear. So if you have something like that too, you'll notice that it looks purple, but when it dries, you won't be able to see it. All right, so my guy's got his eyes. He needs to have his mouth. I'm going to use my Sharpie again, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to give him kind of a funny expression. You can have him do whatever kind of expression you want. You can draw a nose on there as well. My nose is kind of itching, I don't know why. So you see how I gave him a nose and a mouth? So that's just what my guy's expression is. You can have whatever you like. So before we move on, we need to give him some arms, and that's what these pipe cleaners are for. So you don't have to use black and black. I mean, that's up to you. It could be any color. If you're using these, you can color them any color. What's fun about this is you just kind of slide them in. Remember how this little sleeve at the top, these shoulders, well, they're a great place to put this. And look at that, it goes in, works perfectly. I'm gonna do that on the other side as well. Just kind of tuck them in there. My guy looks like he's doing some exercises. They all kind of do. I think that's sort of funny. You can bend their arms to do whatever you want. They can go up, they can go down, they can go up and down. It's really up to you what your guys are doing with their arms. And it's also a good idea to put a little bit of tape in there too. So I'm just getting my arms right. I'm gonna try to anyway. There we go. So my guy's doing the old thing, right? So now all we need are the feet. So to make the little feet, this is another piece of paper. I have not colored any of these feet, but you can always color them if you want to. I'm going to take another sheet of paper. This is another smaller piece. And I am going to cut that in half. And then I'm going to fold it and just give it a little trim. Maybe just make it a little bit smaller. It doesn't have to be really big, but it should be kind of level on all sides. And we need 2 of those. So I'm going to take this other piece and I'm going to take the first one and I'm going to put it right on top of the second one. That way I know exactly how big to make it. So I'm using the first one as a guide, and that way they're going to be almost exactly the same, and like that. All right, so to put the feet on, you just have to take your scissors and do a little cut like this. You don't want to go all the way through, because if you do, then you're going to have 2 pieces. But you do want them to be about the same. So now that you've done that, like I said, you could color these, decorate these, whatever you want. You just slide them on and slide them on, and voila, you've got some feet. That helps your guy stand up. So you have to kind of experiment with them to get him in the right place so that he balances and stands up for you. When you do, you'll find how much fun it is to make them over and over again. You can make a lot of them and they're fun. You can have them holding art supplies. That's like my favorite thing to do with these guys, is to give them things to hold. And so I think that makes them look extra cute. That's just my opinion. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I know I did. I'll see you next time. We hope you will join us next week. We have a special craft planned. It uses all food, a couple of toothpicks too. So this is called an Applehead. It's using a Granny Smith apple, orange rind, lemon rind, sometimes different shapes of pasta. It's really zany and cool. We hope you look forward to it. Go to the grocery store, get the supplies. We'll see you next time.